You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs, to my generation, I'll take the fall. The stakes, look off the nation, and it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Hey yo, welcome back to Reliving the War and welcome to the 11th of October 1999. Raw is taking over the Georgia Dome tonight while Nitro's in Bollocks, Mississippi. The attendance number given for this episode of Raw was 33,375, which means it's the second highest attended Raw of all time, just behind the February 8th episode from the Toronto Sky Dome. Keep in mind too that the July 6th, 1998 episode of Nitro drew around 41,000 to the Georgia Dome when Goldberg defeated Hulk Hogan. We've got WWF No Mercy coming up this week where Stone Cold Steve Austin finally gets his hands on Triple H, and we're going to hear from Stone Cold at the beginning of Raw. Remember, if you want to see No Mercy in the next episode of Reliving the War immediately after this one, you can always check out my Patreon to watch them right now. So grab your supply soldier, fall in, and get ready for another week of Monday Night War action. Nitro begins with an image of Gorilla Monsoon. Monsoon passed away on Wednesday and both WCW and WWF paid tribute to Gino. The WWF played a video narrated by Vince McMahon. The video is really well put together, as you'd expect from the World Wrestling Federation, but the real tribute happens over on Nitro with Bobby Heenan saying goodbye to his old friend. It's heartbreaking seeing Heenan try to keep it together.
A Gorilla will be sadly missed. He was one big tough man. He was a decent, honest man. And we're all going to miss him very much. And you know the pearly gates in heaven?
Yeah.
It's now going to be called the Gorilla position. Goodbye, my friend.
Very well said, Bobby the Brain Heenan. He is going to be sorely missed.
Heenan's tribute is very short though, and it's been pretty much confirmed that Schiavone questioned if WCW should actually pay tribute to Gorilla, seeing as he never worked for the company during his career. Schiavone also questioned if Heenan got the okay from management to say a few words about his old friend, but Heenan ended up getting the last laugh on Schiavone towards the end of the show when he made fun of the fact that Tony wanted his seat raised so he could look bigger than his broadcast partners.
Wouldn't you agree?
I can't hear you way down here.
Nevertheless, Mike, today we're going to go...
For those wondering, these two didn't get along, and Heenan called his time in WCW the worst 6 years of his life. Personally, I just think it's a case of good people stuck in a bad business. Bret Hart and Chris Benoit arrived at the arena, but they were met by Lex Luger and Miss Elizabeth. Lex and Rick Steiner are going to face Benoit and Hart in our main event, and while the total package wants security to come over before a fight breaks out, Miss Elizabeth wants immigration to check out their papers. It's a bit harsh. Perry Saturn wanted to know if he had Dean Malenko's support before going out for a match against Rey Mysterio, but the issues within the Revolution once again came to light during the end of our opening match. Shane Douglas came down to interfere, Malenko stopped the franchise from attacking Rey, and the match got thrown out when Kidman got in the ring to check on Mysterio. Kinda weird seeing as Kidman didn't attack anyone. Billy then challenged the Revolution to a tag team match, so we are going to see that match a little later on. A video then played hyping the return of Meng. Double A watched the video while brushing his teeth. Ric Flair watched it while eating a bowl of Surge. The Nature Boy said Meng's the baddest man in town, and he's absolutely correct. Meng's going to be in action in just a moment. Disco Inferno took on Kaz Hayashi while defending his newly won Cruiserweight Championship, and you know the drill by now. Young Kaz was never going to beat Disco, and Hayashi's position in WCW makes him an easy opponent for the Inferno, even if he is a much better in-ring performer. Disco wanted to know if this match was getting shown in Japan before he beat Hayashi clean with a blockbuster. If there were fans watching in Japan, then I'm sure they switched the channel like everyone else. Schiavone went through the same old tired routine of giving Disco credit after winning his match. Almost every time Disco wins clean, the commentators talk about how tough he is and how he's turning a new page. He's turned so many pages that he's almost finished War and Peace. The Minger then made his return to Nitro in a match against Konnan, and look, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 Konnans in this image. The match was pretty competitive, so at least WCW didn't just feed someone to Meng upon his return, though the outcome was kinda predictable, seeing as the return was hyped up just a few short minutes ago. Meng counters a sunset flip attempt with the Tongan death grip, and Konnan loses the match via pinfall. The outsiders walked through the crowd to take their ringside seats once again, and some lady in the audience just couldn't help herself. She had to touch Kevin's big golden locks, and if you look closely, you can see her apologise immediately afterwards. Heenan gets another interview, now says he's still retired, and Hall says his back sore from carrying WCW all these years, so there's no plans for an in-ring return. Big Kev does give a potential return date though, July 2012, and he again says he's going to get the band back together while laughing his ass off. Must have been some good ganja available in Bollocks, Mississippi. Goldberg squashed Horace Hogan to end our number one, but before the match, Billy Boy was confronted by Sid. Goldberg thought Sid was feeling a little intimidated, but it appears Sid also got hold of some of that good Biloxi ganja. Not a lot to say about the bout, unfortunately. A standard Goldberg match that did make the crowd go crazy. Horace got speared, he got jackhammered, and Goldberg gets his hands on Big Sid Vicious in 2 short weeks. We begin Raw with a Stone Cold Steve Austin promo while Hulk Hogan gets interviewed on Nitro. Vince McMahon introduced Austin to the ring, but before doing that, the chairman said with a giant smile on his face that it was good to be in Atlanta, Georgia tonight for Raw. Jerry Lawler said he never imagined McMahon saying those words. Stone Cold comes down, McMahon leaves, and Austin says he's been on the sidelines for 2 months thanks to Triple H, but this week Austin finally gets his hands on the game. Triple H murdered a snake on SmackDown, he even beat up good old JR, but Austin isn't intimidated a single bit, and Stone Cold wants Triple H to come to the ring right now to begin the No Mercy main event a little early. Hunter shows up. He says he could walk down to the ring and rip Austin's ass from one end of Atlanta to the other. That would be painful, I'm sure. But Triple H ain't gonna do that. He's gonna wait until Sunday. According to Triple H, Steve Austin's afraid of him. Austin knows deep down that he can't beat Helmsley. And then, suddenly, Triple H changes his mind and he decides that he does want to fight. He walks around the ring, Austin waits patiently, but Hunter decides he's going to go after Jim Ross instead. This turns out to be a mistake because Ross attacks Triple H from behind and Austin's able to take advantage. The crowd goes absolutely insane when Triple H and Stone Cold begin fighting on the outside, and it looks like the champion has no chance here. The two end up in the ring and good old JR gets in there too. He punches Hunter in the midsection while the crowd continue to lose their minds, but then Chyna comes out to take care of the WWF's lead commentator. Austin takes care of both Triple H and Chyna, and this leads to Triple H issuing a challenge for tonight. He and Chyna versus Stone Cold and Jim Ross in a tag team match. The crowd gives Stone Cold a hell yeah, so we will see that match a little later on. On Nitro, Hogan addresses some internet rumours about the future of Hulkamania. Whatever these internet rumours were, Hogan said it made him sick, so I'm assuming a story was ran about Hulkamania being yesterday's news. And judging by what happens at Halloween Havoc, I assume these stories were fabricated by WCW's new head writer for the sake of a storyline. Hogan says when he started in the business, the red and yellow was running wild. Not quite true, but okay. It's gonna run wild until the day he leaves the business, and Sting's gonna learn all about Hulkamania in the Halloween Havoc Championship match. Hogan ends the promo by saying he's going to have the last laugh at the pay-per-view, so there's definitely some disconnect here between casual WCW viewers and die-hard fans on the internet, something that's going to continue until the doors close at WCW. All I could find about this was an old Observer article that stated Vince Russo wanted to move Hogan into the mid-card while giving Goldberg a push. Take from that what you will, but it does kinda line up with what happened at the pay-per-view. Backstage, Tori Wilson cleans some lipstick from young Billy Kidman's face. David Flair shows up and he wonders what was smeared all over Kidman, and Tori tells him to piss off and go talk to his dad or something. The look on David's face says it all. Our main man's about to snap and I'm here for it.
By the way, I want to say hi to my one little fan out there. Hello, Smokey, my cat.
We have 2 matches on Raw, Billy Gunn versus Crash Holly and Ivory versus Mae Young. On Nitro, it's Stevie Ray versus Brian Knobbs. On SmackDown, Hardcore Holly defeated Road Dogg, so Crash fancies his chances against Billy Gunn. The Hollies and the Outlaws are going to face each other at No Mercy for the tag team belts, but quick spoiler, the Outlaws lose the belts before the pay-per-view. This match ended in under a minute. Crash took a press slam and a jackhammer before Road Dogg stopped Hardcore from getting in the ring. Billy then pinned Crash after a famouser, and the Hollies then attacked the tag team champions with Crash's scales after the bell. Even though the Outlaws lose their tag team belts, their bout against the Hollies still takes place at the pay-per-view, so if you're a fan of Billy Gunn getting a hot tag, you'll probably enjoy their upcoming match at No Mercy. Another match we'll see at the pay-per-view is Ivory defending her women's championship against the Fabulous Moolah. Ivory says she won't hold back and she doesn't care if it makes people uncomfortable. The women's champ's fed up as seeing Mae Young and Moolah's ugly wrinkled faces and their terrible hunchbacks as they attack her at every given opportunity. So tonight Ivory's agreed to face Mae Young in a non-title match, and as you've probably guessed, it's a fucking embarrassment. The match gets thrown out right away when Ivory hits Mae with her women's championship belt, and then Moolah takes way too long coming in for the save, leaving Ivory standing there like a complete idiot. Moolah then pulls Ivory's hair, she celebrates with the women's championship belt. All this really makes me want to check out what's happening on Nitro, but to be honest, things aren't much better on TNT. Stevie Ray vs Brad Knobbs is a hardcore match, and Complete Tit missed a trash can belly flop in the early going. Stevie Ray then hit Brian a few times with a steel chair, but on the outside, that fruit booty Hugh Morris got involved. Booker T just stood there and let it all go down. Knobbs then pulled off a terrible looking elbow drop while the outsiders pretended to be interested while watching from ringside, and our match ends with Booker attacking Hugh Morris with a steel chair. The referee follows Booker and Morris up the rampway, allowing Jimmy Hart to hit the ropes like an absolute pro before hitting Stevie with a trash can. Brian Knobbs wins our match via pinfall, and it was absolutely brutal. Backstage shenanigans next on Raw, while over on Nitro we've got a Revolution promo plus a Brad Armstrong vs La Parka match. Right, so a bunch of Bulldogs were shown backstage at the Georgia Dome, and JR has no idea why these adorable pooches are at Raw tonight. You'd think the WWF had learnt their lesson when dealing with dogs, but apparently not. We'll come back to this in a moment, but first, Mick Foley tells Michael Cole that maybe he made a mistake when hitting The Rock with a steel chair on SmackDown, or maybe he didn't. Maybe Mick Foley finally got tired of The Rock's snide remarks and Foley finally snapped. The Rock and Sock connection could be over. Mick's no longer wearing his custom-made jacket. Mick says there's no I in team and there's no I in Rock and Sock, so it's all up to the People's Champion. Mankind can go either way, and he wants Rock to make his decision tonight on Raw. Jim Ross then phones Rock, and the phone continues to ring even after Rock picks up.
They got the right number. I didn't have the number. Right one. Hey, Rock!
And all Rock says here is that he's on his way to the Georgia Dome right now and he'll be there in a moment. Davey Boy Smith has no idea why there's a bunch of Bulldogs here at Raw, but he says if this is someone's idea of a joke, it's definitely gonna backfire. The British Bulldog plans on beating Rock at No Mercy, and then he'll be one step closer to the WWF title. I can't wait for a Davey Boy Smith chinlock live on pay-per-view. Stephanie McMahon says she's feeling okay, but her short-term memory's completely gone. She was supposed to get married tonight, but she can't remember any feelings she had for Big Andy. Tess is thanking his lucky stars for sure right now, while Shane reminds Stephanie that none of this is her fault. It's all because of that villainous bastard Davey Boy Smith. Bulldog and Val Venus then jump Mankind from behind, and gee whiz, Mankind sure could use some help right about now from a certain tag team partner of his. A limousine then pulls up, but it's not the great one in there, it's Mark Henry with a young lady. These two head into the arena, and we'll circle back to the World's Strongest Man a little later on. On Nitro, Shane Douglas says the Revolution are going to air their dirty laundry, so the faction comes out and Douglas asks Dean Malenko why Saturn had to settle for a DQ victory earlier on. Perry could have got a pinfall victory if Malenko didn't stop Shane from interfering. Dean just tells Shane to shut his mouth. The franchise then wants to know why Benoit's tagging up with Bret Hart tonight while seemingly dismissing his Revolution teammates, and Benoit says if it wasn't for the Harts there would be no Crippler, and if there was no Crippler there'd be no Revolution. As a matter of fact, Benoit decides to leave the faction. He throws his shirt at Douglas before walking off, and Saturn's angry that Shane not only caused Chris to leave the group, but he also agreed to this tag team match later on against the Filthy Animals when Shane isn't even cleared to wrestle. Dean says that he'll team up with Saturn tonight, and Malenko says he'll take the Revolution back to where it started and how the faction was supposed to be. Parka came out wearing a sick new entrance mask, and seeing as Berlyn's bodyguard attacked Brad Armstrong earlier in the show, I was stupid enough to think that maybe there'd be no interference in this upcoming one-on-one match. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The referee got wiped out, and Parka ended up taking a chair shot from the bodyguard while Brad took care of Berlyn inside the ropes. Unfortunately, old Bradders took his eyes off the big Brad first, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do, and he paid for it by taking a neckbreaker. Brad still won though, as he fell on top of Parka, but who cares, right? Backstage, Curt Hennig's trying to impress Torrie Wilson, and the cock-blocking David Flair strikes once again. Torrie tells Flair to leave her alone, and Curt decides to beat the crap out of David because 1, he ruined his chances with Miss Wilson, and 2, it's just fun to do. Even when taking a backstage beating, young Flair still looks incredibly awkward.
Big Bratwurst.
Edge and Christian take on the Hardys next on Raw, while WCW presents Norman Smiley vs Berlyn. An absolute battle for the ages here on Nitro, and even though Berlyn broke the golden rule, Brad Armstrong did not attack during this match. I know, what a shocking turn of events. Hip toss from Berlyn, body slam from Berlyn. Norman replies with a hip toss of his own, followed by an arm drag. Norman teases a big wiggle, but he says it ain't time yet. Our boy's teasing us right now, and I don't like it. Berlyn delivers a spinning wheel kick. He taunts the crowd before hitting a snap suplex. Berlyn then goes upstairs, but he gets kicked in the face, and after a Smiley slam, Norman shuffles like he's never shuffled before. I'm so torn here, and I don't want either of these men to lose this match. Another Smiley slam gets followed up with a big wiggle. Berlyn's having flashbacks of his old luminous green trunks and leather jackets. He then remembers that he can't go back to the days of Saturday Night Fever, so he hits a running knee strike. Norman then takes the neckbreaker. Berlyn wins via pinfall. It's tough when your heroes go one-on-one, but at least we got a clear winner. Norman Smiley's still over though, and it's all thanks to the big wiggle. So Edge and Christian are 2-1 in the Terri Runnels Invitational, and they could win the series if they beat the Hardys tonight. Christian missed an assisted crossbody, and Jeff delivered a smooth Arabian press moonsault. The Hardys then double team Christian while the referee's busy with Edge. Both Hardy Boyz miss top rope leg drops, and this allows Edge to tag in. He delivers a double spear to the Hardys before Matt falls victim to a downward spiral. Brother Jeff then breaks up Edge's cover with a swanton bomb, and the fast-paced action continues with Jeff taking an unprettier. Matt performs a moonsault to the outside, and this gets followed with Jeff performing a top rope crossbody. Not to be outdone, Edge connects with a slingshot senton to the outside, and our match ends in disqualification. The referee couldn't gain control, so neither team wins, and that means the score remains 2-1 in the Terri Runnels Invitational. Next, we're going to see X-pac in action, and Waltman tells Kane to stay out of his match. X-pac still wants to prove himself, and no matter what happens, he doesn't want the big red machine coming down to help him out. The Rock's arrived at the Georgia Dome, and he pokes fun at WCW by doing a routine we have seen him do before. He says the people want to hear his famous catchphrase, and he goes through Savage, Flair and Hogan's famous sayings before finally getting it right with "if you smell what the Rock's cooking." Rock doesn't care about Mick Foley, he wants nothing to do with Mick, and he wipes his ass with how Mankind feels about the Rock and Sock connection. Foley shows up, he wants Rock to tell him to his face that the Rock and Sock connection's breaking up, and just before Rock can tell Mick to shove his jacket, mask and 10-cent outfit up his candy ass, Vince McMahon dashes over to inform Rock and Mankind that they're gonna team up in tonight's main event. For the next 24 hours, the Rock and Sock connection will remain together, and they're gonna face the British Bulldog and Val Venus. Mankind seems pretty happy with this announcement, while The Rock seems pretty pissed off. Next up, it's X-pac vs Farouk, while over on Nitro, we've got a Ric Flair promo. So Rick puts the crowd over before saying he was out on the prowl looking for women when someone told him his son David got jumped by Curt Hennig. Funny how Flair stuck around to watch a Meng hype video, but he couldn't care less about his own son's escapades. Flair only wanted to chase girls tonight, but he and Hennig have history. Now Rick has to teach his old enemy a lesson in respect. Flair accidentally calls Hennig Mr. Perfect while telling his opponent for the night to get his gear ready, and when Rick's done with Kurt, he's gonna go after Kimberly Page. Kim may like DDP because he's a 2-time champion, but she's gonna love being with a 14-time champion tonight in Bullocks, Mississippi. Kane watched on backstage as X-Pac did a pretty good job of beating up Farouk in our next Raw match. Farouk took Kid's jumping clothesline and he ended up on the receiving end of a Bronco Buster. But, as expected, Bradshaw jumped on the apron and this temporarily put X-Pac off his game. Still, Waltman was able to overcome both acolytes by sending Farouk into Bradshaw, and Farouk takes the X Factor to end the match. After gaining a pinfall win, X-Pac gets attacked by Bradshaw and Farouk, and Kane tried to intimidate the acolytes by appearing on the rampway, but this didn't work. The Big Red Machine stayed away from the ring as requested while the acolytes performed a double powerbomb on X-Pac, but when Bradshaw went for a top rope move, Kane had seen enough and he came down to help Kid. X-Pac told Kane he didn't want any help no matter what. He's very angry at his big red friend for interfering, though Pac will get a chance to stand on his own 2 feet this week in the Four Corners elimination match at No Mercy. That girl who arrived at Raw with Mark Henry, she's a sex therapist. And in order to tame the beast known as sexual chocolate, Big Mark's going to go through some serious overstimulation tonight in Atlanta. Mark wants to use his handcuffs, the lady tells him to be serious, and Mark gets told he better be ready for this drastic overstimulation, whatever it may be. Next on Raw, the reunited Headbangers take on Chris Jericho and Curtis Hughes. On Nitro, the Filthy Animals take on the Revolution. Headbanger Thrasher revealed to everyone that Mariana had been lying about her boyfriend Chaz. She was using makeup this whole time, so the cops arrested her and the Headbangers got back together. Again, I personally think the damage was already done with this storyline though. The Headbangers make fun of Chris Jericho's sweet hairdo, and we kick things off with Jericho getting launched into the top rope. The Ayatollah then finds himself in the Tree of Woe and Mosh pulls off a hip attack. The Headbangers then try to pull off some of their old double team moves, and yeah, it looks like they're a little rusty. So Chris takes advantage with a double underhook backbreaker before tagging in Mr. Hughes. Mosh wipes Curtis out with a diving clothesline. Chris tags back in after Hughes takes another clothesline. Chris applies the wall to Jericho, but Thrasher comes in to save his partner. Chris takes a double flapjack. Curtis tries to break the follow-up cover, but he whacks Chris. Jericho calls his partner a stupid son of a bitch, and Y2J leaves Curtis high and dry after punching him in the face. The Headbangers pull off a stage dive, and again, I think these boys are just a bit rusty. But Mosh and Thrasher win this match as Raw continues on. Backstage, Big Show reveals that his dad has terminal cancer. D'Lo says if there's anything Show needs, he'll be there for him, but right now the big man wants to be all alone. Again, it's one of those storylines that hits home for a lot of people, even if it does provide us with a seriously over-the-top pre-tape later on. And remember too, this isn't a Vince Russo storyline. The Rock's putting Mankind to work. If The Rock and Sock Connection are getting back together tonight, then Mick needs to do some scooping. Foley's in the Bulldog pen. He's given orders to scoop up all the dog shit. He has to put it all on a tray because The Rock has something planned for later tonight. Again, remember, Vince Russo isn't here anymore. Over on Nitro, the Filthy Animals and the Revolution had a pretty good match. It began with a head scissor takedown from Kidman, followed by a flapjack from Malenko. Dino Machino then tells Shane Douglas to back off when the match goes to the outside. And Saturn then takes over with an overhead belly to belly that sends Kidman back to the floor. Again, Dean tells Shane to stay away from Kidman. We come back from commercial break to see a back suplex from Dean Malenko. Rey wants tagged in badly, and he also wants to get that hair sorted out badly from the looks of things. Mysterio tags in, but he immediately gets taken down with a crossbody from Saturn while sitting on Malenko's shoulders. And for some reason, Dean doesn't want Perry to pin Mysterio. This is confusing because Saturn is the legal man and he didn't do anything wrong. Mysterio goes for a Bronco Buster, but he gets kicked in the dick instead. He then takes a suplex before Dean tags in. The Iceman almost gets pinned and Saturn isn't happy about it either. So Perry tags himself back in and something's gotta give here. We may be looking at the end of this short-lived revolution. Dean tells Saturn to wrestle and Perry decides to tag out again. And after Dean does a little work in the ring, the two Revolution members seem to get back on the same page, although this doesn't last long. Rey takes a gutbuster from Malenko before Dean applies the Texas Cloverleaf. Saturn then tags himself in and Dean gets really pissed off. Heenan throws another jab at Schiavone here when he says, you know, some people are just selfish, Tony, and that's maybe the way you have to be. And the Revolution's bickering comes to a stop when Kidman gets a hot tag and the Filthy Animals go on offense. Our match ends with Shane Douglas stopping a shooting star press before passing the chain to Saturn. Saturn has no issues using the chain on Billy, and the Revolution score a pinfall win. Dean once again sees what happened on the big screen, and obviously he's not happy with how the Revolution won this match. So he too decides to leave the faction and he heads back up the ramp all alone. The Revolution are merely a tag team now, and it looks like the faction is officially over. On Raw, we've got Godfather vs Mark Henry plus the Big Boss Man vs The Big Show. On Nitro, it's Sid Vicious vs Van Hammer. No point going in depth with our Nitro match. I was hoping for some big power moves from both competitors, but nothing happens. Punches, kicks, chokes, all that kind of stuff. Neither man wanted to do anything spectacular, so it isn't really worth my time or your time. Rick Steiner came down after a referee bump, and the DFG helped Sid powerbomb MC Hammer for the 1, 2, 3. Wish to God Scott Steiner would come back, but we haven't seen him on Nitro since his return 2 weeks ago. After the match we see, oh my god, here it is. It's a kid trying to get some shut-eye, but some creep comes to his window while saying stuff like, "Come to me and live forever, and join me in complete bliss." This, of course, is Dustin Runnels, who we last saw in Reliving the War portraying the Goldust character, and thankfully this whole thing gets shit-canned when Vince Russo turns it into a work-shoot promo instead of forgetting it ever happened. Dustin looks like Uncle Fester, his new name is Seven and not Dr. Disrespect, and yeah, what can I say that hasn't been said already? On Raw, we've got 2 pretty short matches. Mark Henry's therapist says the big man has to overcome this army of women that surround the ring. Michael Cole says this is a hoe jack match, and I don't know guys, doesn't lumber hoe sound a lot better? Henry can't help himself, he goes to the outside but Godfather intervenes. When Mark gets put to the outside again, he gets surrounded by girls and Mark's therapist looks a little disappointed. Henry loses the match in no time at all when the Godfather delivers a hoe train, but Mark's overcome with joy when the women get in the ring. It's all too much for sexual chocolate. The boss man comes out and he says he doesn't care about Show's problems. He has a bigger problem right now, and that's the ass kicking he's going to receive from the big boss man. Show comes out looking pretty upset, but he delivers a sidekick before getting in the ring. Bossman then takes a running forearm, and it seems like Show's turning his worries into pure anger. So Bossman grabs his nightstick and he gets himself disqualified after hitting the big man a few times. Al Snow runs down and he just about back body drops Big Bubba, but Snow also takes a few shots with that nightstick. Bossman seems happy with what he's accomplished here tonight, so yeah, we're going to see a Big Show versus Bossman feud moving forward, and it ain't going to be pretty. Backstage, Mick Foley scooped up all the dog poop, and it makes you wonder what kind of diet these dogs are on. Mick said earlier on he was maybe getting fed up of The Rock making fun of him, but now he's literally picking up shit for the Great One. Ric Flair takes on Curt Hennig in the Nitro semi-main event, while over on Raw, it's Triple H and Chyna versus Steve Austin and Jim Ross. So this is the 5th Curt Hennig vs Ric Flair match we have seen on Reliving the War, and it won't be the last one either. The highlight of this one was Curt performing a moonwalk after taking a low blow, and I've no idea why he did this, but I absolutely love it. Flair lays in the knife-edge chops on the outside, but Hennig gives as good as he gets beside the commentary table. And the Nature Boy gets suplexed back inside the ropes before getting sent out again after going up and over the top turnbuckle. After a brief run-in with Curly Bill, Rick gets back inside the ring only to take a back body drop. Curt then launches his opponent off the top rope, but all it takes is a punch to the gut and Flair's back in the driver's seat. The flow of this match has been absolutely terrible, but Rick applies the figure 4 and Hennig makes it to the bottom rope. The end of the match was completely ruined thanks to Curly Bill and David Flair. Curt got some extra leverage when pinning Rick, and Bill was supposed to hold on to Curt's feet. Well, Curly Bill was about 3 seconds too late and Rick had to get his shoulder up. And then David Flair was about 6 seconds too late when he come down to pull Curly Bill away from the apron. You really need to see it to believe it. Ric Flair wins with a schoolboy pin, a match totally ruined by the finish, and Curt Hennig doesn't look happy about it at all. Jim Ross comes to the ringside wearing a Steve Austin shirt and Triple H attacks early. Austin runs down for the save and Stone Cold isn't in his ring gear tonight. Guess he thought it really wasn't worth it. Austin and Hunter fight at the stage and Triple H takes a suplex. The two head back to ringside where the brawl continues, and you know what, I don't care about this. We're going to see these two at No Mercy anyway, so I want to see Jim Ross pulling off moonsaults. Unfortunately, good old JR's getting choked out by Chyna, so the camera focuses on Triple H and Austin. We go to the audience where Triple H gets his ass kicked, but Chyna's now brought JR inside the ropes. Unfortunately, the cameras focus on the main eventers, though we head back to the real action when Austin and Hunter end up leaving the arena. Right, here we go. Chyna lays the boots in and JR gets choked out in the corner. A few clubs to the back and a few kicks keeps Jim on the mat. And the ninth wonder of the world then looks to wreck Jim with a pedigree. Chyna performs the move, and you know what? It could have been way worse, I guess. Double J then runs down to hit Chyna with a toaster, further highlighting the odd position Chyna's currently in, what with her being a babyface against Jarrett and a heel everywhere else. Miss Kitty then comes down with a laundry basket and Chyna gets dumped inside by Double J, and when Chyna leaves the arena, Triple H and Stone Cold return. Triple H gets thrown into a concession stand and some absolute knobhead throws his popcorn all over the game. Where's Big Jim Dotson when you need him? Oh yeah, he's still getting over that ass kicking Steve Blackman gave him a few weeks ago. Triple H then takes a beating while laid out inside a drink stand, and the match ends with Austin telling the champ that he's got a friend he wants Triple H to meet. We'll come back to this at the end of the show, but yeah, a pretty fun brawl here on Raw's War. Backstage, Jarrett pushes the laundry bin off a raised platform and the damage looks pretty bad. Chyna's got her head busted wide open, and remember, she is facing Double J this week at No Mercy. The Rock and Sock Connection take on Val Venis and the British Bulldog in the Raw main event. On Nitro, we've got Bret Hart and Chris Benoit versus Lex Luger and Rick Steiner. At one point in time, this team of Bret Hart and Chris Benoit would have been a dream team, and they go to work right away by beating the crap out of their opponents. We've got Benoit and Rick Steiner in the ring while Bret fights Lex on the outside, and Benoit gets shut down pretty quickly with a scoop power slam. Chris then takes a Steiner line, but his partner's in no rush to offer up a tag. Instead, Bret stays focused on the total package, and Lex isn't doing too well. Chris does manage to catch Steiner in a crossface, but Lex Luger gets in the ring to break the hold. Benoit then gets tossed to the outside and the Hitman's left all alone against his opponents, but his excellency shows some serious jam when he pulls off a double clothesline. Bret finds himself in a full Nelson, but before Rick can take Bret's head off, Benoit trips him up and Lex takes a low blow. The Hitman then delivers an inverted atomic drop to Luger, followed by a Russian leg sweep, and Steiner takes a diving headbutt from Chris Benoit. Sid Vicious then runs down to cause a DQ finish. You fucking didn't see that coming, did ya? He whacks Bret just as the Hitman was applying a sharpshooter, and Chris takes the double powerbomb. Rick and Sid then assist Lex in putting Bret in a torture rack, and that's when Goldberg runs down for the save. Rick Steiner takes a spear while Sid grabs a microphone, and Sid reminds Goldberg that he can't put a hand on the big man or he'll lose his Halloween Havoc match. Goldberg begins to walk away, but he then says fuck it, and Sid gets speared just before Nitro fades to black. Goldberg vs Sid still happens at the pay-per-view, by the way, and it turns out to be one of the best matches on the card. Tells you all you need to know really about Halloween Havoc 99. On Raw, Mick Foley brings the bullcrap down to ringside. Someone's going in that tray, and I sincerely hope it isn't Davey Boy Smith. All four men brawl inside the ring, and when the Rock and Sock Connection come out on top, Mick wants to hug his partner, but the Rock's having none of it. Venis and Foley fight on the outside, and Mankind almost falls into that dog poop. Thankfully, he's able to fight Venis off, so his lovely custom-made jacket doesn't get dirty. Bulldog tags in very briefly before tagging back out again. He used to do this quite a lot when tagging with Owen, if you remember, so not a lot's changed. In comes Rocky, and Venis gets confident after delivering a few shots in the corner, but Rock fires back with a DDT before the British Bulldog decides he's going to work a little tonight. A rock bottom attempt gets stopped thanks to Mr. Venis. The Great One takes a fisherman suplex from Val. Both Rock and Venis stay on the mat after a Samoan drop, and Mick tries to will his partner back into the match by showing him the Rock and Sock logo on the back of his jacket. Mick and Bulldog tag in, Foley's all fired up and Venis has to step in to help his partner. Val ends up taking a low blow and a double arm DDT, and Mick sticks his hand down Venus's tights in order to retrieve Mr. Rocco. He gets the airbrushed sock, but he also gets clobbered by Davey Boy. The men fight on the outside, Venis gets Mr. Rocco back before using a steel chair on the Great One. Mick then pulls out Mr. Socko, and this is enough to make Val panic, and the big Valboski leaves the ringside area. Venis gets chased back up the ramp and out of the arena, so we're going to end this one with Bulldog and Rock. Rock grabs the tray of putrid shit, he puts it in the ring, and no, god damn it. Rock drops Davey in the shit and he goes for a people's elbow, but Davey rolls off the dog poop. The Rock has second thoughts and the match just ends. I guess it's a no contest, but I can only see one loser here and I'm not happy about it either. Before Raw ends, we see Triple H and Steve Austin fighting in the backstage area and Austin throws Hunter into a room. Inside that room's Austin's little friend he mentioned earlier on, and it's a rattlesnake. Raw goes off the air before we see the snake beating the hell out of Triple H, but I'll cover what happened next in the No Mercy video. Raw wins Reliving the War this week, but I will say I was expecting a bit more from an episode of Raw inside the Georgia Dome. I would have really liked to have seen a good long singles match here, but I think the WWF were more laser focused on promoting No Mercy instead of putting on good matches. Nitro's been on autopilot recently, and the random match bookings have continued to hurt the overall show, but this should change next week when the new head of creative makes his presence felt. God help us all. Raw's on 110 points, Nitro's on 75, and we've got 20 ties on the board. In the TV ratings, Raw scored a 6.1, while Nitro put up an abysmal 2.6. I mean, it would have still been a good number for any TV show, but in the Monday Night War and when compared to previous scores, this was pretty bad. No Mercy is our next WWF pay-per-view and the video's already been completed. You can watch it now on Patreon while supporting the channel, or you can tune in this Sunday and see what happened in the Triple H vs Steve Austin main event. You can also check out the next episode of Reliving the War right now. We have also got Jeff Jarrett vs Chyna at the pay-per-view, we've got Rock vs Bulldog, and let's not forget the final Terri Runnels Invitational match that turns out to be an absolute show stealer. Episode 206 will be the final Reliving the War for a couple of weeks. I'm taking a short break and I'll be away from my PC for a while, but I will give you guys a reminder about this before I sign off. Thanks very much for watching, guys, I do appreciate it, and please take care.